Welcome back. I'm Christopher, your host. This is Realtor React. Um, Today is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. I want to jump back in with our old friend Rusty Nielsen. If you haven't seen Rusty's channel, I highly recommend you check it out. It's good times. It's very informative. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the screen now. And before we jump into today's video, I want to kind of do a full disclosure, right? I have a habit of doing this, right? Right here where it says pissed off neighbors, tornado chasing an arc. This was the video I was thinking about doing today. And then I realized that that video is only 13 days old. And not that I think I even could, but I don't even want to give the airs of attempting, right? I don't want to do that one because it might cannibalize his view count on his channel. When you have an opportunity to do something the right way and not the wrong way, I recommend you do it the right way. So we're definitely going to do that video at some point in the future because I think it's interesting, and we're not going to do it today because I don't want to pull any views from his channel where he's worked very hard to produce this content. So what we will do today is this one right here. I have not even begun to watch this. I started watching the other one just to kind of get a sense of what was in there. But I think this is going to be an interesting topic to dive into. And who knows, we're probably going to encounter a couple of surprises. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Hopefully we're gonna do this in a timely manner, right? Here we go.
If you don't know what this is, you're going to find out today, and it's something that can help your pets out. Let's talk pets.
That's a laser digital thermometer. And I know that because I see my home inspectors use it all the time when they're checking their returns on the AC system. Back in.
At the village. That's right, everybody. We're going to talk about this little gem right here. And my name is Rusty Nelson, by the way, and I'm down here at the villages, and I do a bunch of videos dealing with retirement, the villages. So it kind of interests a lot of people in a lot of different areas. But I'll give you an example why I'm doing this. I just got back from Philadelphia, brought down my printers. I'll show you that, and that was kind of an exciting time. But I was driving up the street, and I saw somebody walking down the street. And this is about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they had their dog with them. Now, if you don't live here in the villages and you don't know, during the summer it gets pretty hot out there, and I'm watching this dog, and they're walking this dog all the way down the street. Now, I don't think they realize how hot the concrete gets, or the drive gets, or the parking lots get, or anything else. So we're going to take this out. This is a digital thermometer and it's laser, so it's pretty accurate. And we're going to go check it out different parts of the day and see exactly what the temperature is that you're walking your dog along. Now, it feels good to you because you're not in your bare feet, but trust me, it is hot to them. And just because you think that they have pads and they're not yelping or screaming, it can take a while. You know, when you touch a hot pan or something like that, it can actually take a second or two before you actually feel the pain from the heat. By that time, the damage is already done. And you have to remind yourself your pet is trying to please you almost all the time. So it figures if you're walking along there, it can walk along there also. But we're going to see it's not always safe. So let's take a look at this part first because I think it's really important. I don't want people to drop off. Then we're going to talk about a few rules and regulations that the villages has regarding pets, and also take a visit to a couple of the dog parks. Now, let me tell you right now, it's all a mishmash of stuff because I just got down here and I tried to do this really in a hurry. So you'll see me. Yep, I'll have a beard or a little bit of scruff, and some places have a different shirt on. But just sit back, relax, and we'll go ahead and take a look at these things. I'm down here getting ready to do the video on the dog parks. And, I always meet.
So why did I pick this particular video? Because pets are part of our extended family, right? And I've been a pet owner my whole life. I'm not currently a pet owner only because I don't want to deal with the emotional turmoil of losing a pet again. But um, in the villages, and pets are huge, right? They're part of our family, and a lot of times, more often than you'd probably think, right? What the living situation for the pet is going to be factors into the home selection, right? In the home environment. Pets, particularly dogs, right, are the number two biggest reason courtyard villas sell, because they have the enclosed back. Dog owners will buy courtyard villas all day long. And I understand where Rusty's coming from with this, because as human beings, we don't think to ourselves, hey, let me take off my socks and my shoes, and not in that order, but and walk around on this hot pavement that's been baking underneath this incredibly intense sun for a couple of hours here. We don't think to do that. I've done it. I understand that pain. And yeah, our dogs have a little bit more protection on their feet, but they also come right home and they start licking their paws because they finally figure out, oh, that's hot, right? I'm not a veterinarian. I don't know what kind of long-term damage is possible here. Usually what I recommend is keep them in the grass as much as possible. Move them from grassy section to grassy section. Obviously, if they're doing their business, check with which neighbor is going to be okay with that, and make sure that you're cleaning up after yourself whenever possible. But yeah, try not to have long engagements with concrete or asphalt with the dogs. All right, jumping back in.
A bunch of nice people, and up comes, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Paul
And
Rinaldi, and I've been here at Homestead for going on 17 months in June.
17 months. So just typical meeting nice people down by the ball. But we had like this long discussion, and he clued me in on a few things, and I'm going to go over those things. And thanks for the advice.
Yep.
Anybody you want to say hi to?
Hello, Andrea, and hello, Marguerite and Roger Pradesh.
There you go. So thanks to Paul. He clued me in on a bunch of stuff, and we're going to go over some of those important things. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thank you, Rusty.
Okay. See you later. And that's the way it's going to be. We're going to have a lot of fun here and go over a lot of these rules and regulations and things you can do to help out your pet. And I think you're going to be surprised at a few of them. And we're going to go visit a few of the parks. Before I even get started on this, I want to show you folks something. Now, I used to train dogs when I was younger. Got some bugs down here. When I was younger, and there's a lot of stuff that I learned about dogs. On my way over here, I saw some people walking their dog down the street. So they had already walked the whole block. Today's probably, I think it's about 88 degrees. So it's not a super hot day. And you see it's partly cloudy, clouds go in and out. But I want you to take a look at this right here. And this is actually, I'll take a shot of this, see what this comes up as. 132 degrees. It's 132 degrees on that. And the concrete itself, I'd say is going to be probably about 110 maybe. Oh, there you go, 112. 112 degrees. I promise you, if you walk across that, your feet are going to be burning. And I'm going to put up a sign that I saw here. I thought this was a really cool little sign, and I wish they'd put these around the villages. But the temperatures that this by the end of the day, you're talking about 130, 140 degrees that these animals are being walked on. And some of the hotter spots, there's almost 140 degrees. And they're putting their animals on these. Please, folks, unless it's early in the morning, the sun's barely come up, don't walk your animal on there, because they're not going to complain. They love you, and they figure that you're taking them on a good place, and they're walking along. You want to go walk on this, you go take your shoes off, and you go try walking on 140 degrees. It's like walking across coals. So please don't walk your animals on here. And the reason that they have dog parks, you betcha, is because this gives them a chance to go play. Now, I just had a chance to meet Paul, And I went over a bunch of stuff with Paul, and he asked me to please convey some things to you folks. And I realize that you bring your dogs down here, but one of the biggest things that you need to do is read this. And there's a lot of good information on here. The hours of operation, 7 to dusk. Enjoy it. Definitely, you're at your own risk. You have to be 19 years of age or you have to bring an adult with you. They need to be on a leash until you get in there. They can't be aggressive dogs. These are some big things. Now, the big thing, he said, believe it or not, and I kind of found this unbelievable, is people, even inside here, he has to go in, and he's told us stories where people will just leave and they'll leave poop there, even with other people around, which absolutely blows my mind. But I'm going to give you a shot, try to get an aerial shot of this area, and then we're going to go visit some of the other areas that parks, because there's a bunch of parks all through the villages. It's really a pet friendly area. One of the other things that Paul asked me to emphasize that's really important, that there are certain areas like the astronomy area over here, and there's the boardwalks over in here. I did a video on the boardwalks. You cannot take your animals on there even if they're on a leash, and there's a bunch of safety regulations why you can't do that. And so please don't bring your animals out on the boardwalk. And once again, please don't take your animals out onto this hot area. We'll take one more shot of this so you can see. There you go, right there's 131 degrees. So we had 131 to what, 140 some degrees on the pavement. I'm over here at St. Catherine. I figured this would be a good thing to take a look at. So a lot of us take our animals out and they walk them along this area. So let's see what the temperature is here. 136, and this is in the shade. 136, 140 degrees, and this is kind of a overcast day. So it's definitely hurting your animals. Walking them across this and walking them over to this area is probably 60 minutes, or 60 seconds. So you're definitely subjecting them to walking them down the street on here. Coming in here, you're 125, 130 degrees. Once you get onto this black area, you're already up to
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here real quick because, I spend a fair amount of time, not as much as I used to these days, but a fair amount of time in the car driving around in the community for various reasons. And I see it constantly and it drives me up the wall. We have these smaller dogs, right? Even the bigger dogs, but really the smaller dogs, okay? And we're walking with the dog in the grass, which is correct. That's what we want to be doing, right? But we're walking with the dog in the grass, and the dog is on the side of the grass closest to the body of water, whether it's a retention pond or a lake or, just a water feature of some kind, closest to the side with water. Now, I always have to remind myself that not all of my residents grew up in Florida, okay? And they don't know how quickly a gator can come out of there, right? They don't understand the speed that this reptile can move across land, particularly in a straight line, right? How it's over before you even know what happened, okay? Your dog, your little dogs in particular, right, look like food. And the closer you get to the bank where the water meets the land, the more delicious they start looking, the more accessible they become, okay? So I always try and encourage my folks when I have pet owners, walk your dog in the grass, walk your dog on the left side of you or right side, whatever way puts your body between them and the water feature. Because you don't look like food to the gator. You look like another predator. You're big and tall, and from its perspective, you're ginormous, right? So it doesn't want to play with you. It wants the little doggy, okay? So I wanted to chime in with that since we're talking about dog safety, right? I don't know what this boardwalk thing is he's referring to. If he's in the southern sections, I'm assuming it's the one that kind of goes through the nature preserve. And my map doesn't even show it just yet. St. Catharines. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's the one that kind of parallels the nature preserve. And so that's, why would you not want to take the dog out there? Do you really think the Gators care about the sanctity of the walking path? Probably not. Particularly if you bring a food item with you, from their perspective. So just be conscious of these things. I tell my kids all the time, I don't want you playing near water. It's too easy. And yes, I don't want to give gators a bad rap, right? But I'll tell you a quick story. This video is probably going to go a little long. I was driving home from an open house. I'm trying to remember where it was. It's escaping me at the moment. I was driving home from an open house, and I saw a woman on the side of the road out of her vehicle. And so I pulled over because I thought she was having car troubles, and I was going to offer her assistance. And she was behaving oddly. First of all, she didn't acknowledge that I was approaching her, and I'm 6'1", 300 pounds. So, some strange guy comes walking up on my wife. I like to think that she'd be paying attention to what his intentions are. But I was walking up behind her, and she was on the phone, and I figured she was just calling for help. And I said, hey, what's going on? What seems to be the problem? And she's like, there's a gator. I was like, where's the gator? Right? That's how stealthy these little buggers are, right? Sure enough, on the walking path, the sidewalk outside of the golf course, because there was the golf course had broken across the road there, on the very low brush, I saw the gator's head sticking out, right? And I was impressed and mad at the same time. This gator had strategically positioned itself to be facing the direction where the dog is going to be walking, right? So the gator's here, and the dog walks here, right? Right past its face, right? And I was like, oh, yeah. So I didn't engage the gator, but I approached the gator. I kept a good 30, 40 feet between us, right? And I faced it the entire time, right? Once it figured out that we had detected its position, it got up, moved out, right? Kind of stared us down, then crossed the street, and then went back to the water feature on the other side, across the golf course. And I'm yelling in the middle of the street, gator crossing, right? But it happens. You have to be vigilant. These are big, powerful animals that are predatory in their nature. And they're everywhere. They're in places you don't expect them to be. So keep that in mind when you're walking your dog, okay? Particularly when you're walking your dog. All right, let's jump back in here.
138, 140 degrees. So like I said, please, please, please don't walk your animals across this, because they're not going to turn around and go, hey, my feet are hot. They look over at you and go, and they have these big pads on the bottom of their paws, but under that, they end up getting blisters. So please be very cautious about what you're doing out in the sun and on the hot pavement. All right, enough of that. 140 degrees and that's not even the highest. Enough said on that. Also, please pay attention to your animals running around in that heat, because I know you're out there socializing with everybody in the run areas, but your dog doesn't quite always know when to stop, and there is no place to get them into a cool area. If you see your pet really doing some heavy panting, you need to get the dog back, get them in an air-conditioned car, or get them home to an air-conditioned area. And as always, make sure you have water available. But please make sure you take your little water pots and everything back home with you. And remember that also that the older dogs are just not going to fare that well out in the heat. I will put up right here recap of that first sign that I put up there, and you can freeze frame it. And also this one that will kind of give you an idea of what you need to think of as far as temperatures. Now, there's some other things you need to think about if you're going to have a pet here in the villages, and we're going to go over some of those restrictions. But first, let's think about what the county requires. Now, there are like 4 counties that the villages encompass, but most of it's Sumter County, and most of them are all the same. If you take a look at this page, and I'll put the link down below, you need to have your animal vaccinated and you need to have a license on the animal. So, looking at this page, you not only need to do that for Sumter County, but you also need to do that to take your animals in and out of the run areas. And speaking of that, they need to be on a leash when they go into the run area. And that's what that little area is for in there. And then you can unleash them, let them out. Please make sure that your animals are not aggressive. And that doesn't mean, well, they're kind of not aggressive. I realize, being that I trained watchdogs, I know that even the nicest animals can get aggressive. And you'll see that where, just like we don't like some other human beings, there's dogs that meet up with other dogs that just do not like them. So your first time in there, you may want to hang with them on a leash and keep that really close at hand. Let's talk about what seems to be one of the biggest myths as far as dogs go or pets go in the villages. Now, I've heard this 1,000 times, and I have.
So I have the little one, right, John, and the kids, they get excited. John gets scared, right? He sees a new dog. We were out at a dog show with one of my more recent customers and friends. She was nice enough to invite us out to this dog show because she had trained her dog, and I wanted to support her, and so she had invited us, and I brought the kids with me. Um, John, very, very leery, right? Very leery, healthy respect for giving the dog distance, right? Even the playful ones, right? Alex, my oldest, 15, right? Right in, right? Right in. And so what I try to explain to them and help them understand, because sometimes folks will walk their dogs outside the house, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with using my yard. I'm not that precious about my yard. Okay, so it's fertilizer at the end of the day to me. So, but Alex will just walk right up, right? And I try to help him understand, and I only mention this because if you're not a dog person, right, you may not be thinking along these lines, right? Dogs have a mentality, right, about protecting their space and protecting their owners, and they're not sure of your intentions, right? And there's an introductory process in the dog world, from what I understand. I'm no expert on this, okay? But what I encourage everyone to do is that when somebody approaches me with a dog, or approaches one of my kids with the dog, I don't care what size it is, I don't care how good you think the dog is. Um, I watch the dog's body language, and I encourage my kids to let me get the introduction done. I always do the introduction, even if the dog comes up and is friendly and wagging its tail, right? This can turn on a dime. I've seen it happen, right? So we get the sniff, I get the permission for touch, right? I give it a little scritch behind the ear. I make sure that we're all on the same page. This is a non-hostile environment. I'm not a threat to you or your owner, right? So on and so forth. And so I want my kids to understand that there is a process to adhere to when we are engaging a new person and a new animal for the first time. Um, Much like you would introduce yourself and shake hands, right? If you were meeting somebody new. So pets have a zone, right? And you want to respect it. Otherwise, you might get bit. So be careful. Be careful. All right, let's jump back in.
Yet to know anybody that could actually point this out to me. And they say, oh, well, it's okay if you have more than 2 pets. You're allowed 2 pets in the villages, but you can have 3 pets, and as one passes, you just can't get another one. Until somebody shows me that in writing, I'm going to scream BS. And I'll tell you why. As some of you already know, I am kind of a I read the restrictions. I know the restrictions pretty well. And I went back and looked from all the way back to the first CDD, the Area 1 up there. And if you take a look at that, this is exactly what it says. Now I'm going to show all four up there. And the first one is District 1, and the second one is District 2. I believe the third one is District 12 and District 13. Here they are. And if you take a quick look at this, District 1 says at that point in time, you could only have one cat, one dog, maximum of 20 pounds in weight. Now, obviously, that has gone by the wayside, and I don't know whether District 1 actually got amended. I couldn't find it, but maybe it did. And then all of a sudden, it jumps up in District 2 that you can have two pets and there's no size limit. And basically, you're responsible for your animals. And so where it says Section 7, I believe that's District 12. And that has a limit of two pets per home site. And you will be responsible for any damage caused. And you're supposed to pick up the poop. Now, all of a sudden, you jump to District 13. You can freeze frame this if you want, but I'm going to come back on here. So you can see why a lot of us, especially people that have these YouTube channels, say you've got to read the deed restrictions for your specific district because they change and they can change over time also. Now, why in District 13 they struck the 2 animal limit? Have no idea. It does say that it is that they cannot become a nuisance. So I hate to tell you, but if your next door neighbor hears the dogs barking and there's 3 dogs in that house, that's a nuisance. And that's specifically spelled out in county law. And that warrants a call from the sheriffs or the police department because they are the ones that have to uphold things that are inside. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe there's actually law in their precedents where they can actually come in. And if your dogs are a nuisance, they can actually come into your house and take the animals. So, with that said, I'm not an attorney. I don't work for the villages and all that happy stuff. Now that we've kind of covered some of the basic things,
I'm a little, maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention here, right? Because he's saying two different things, right? He's showing me deed restrictions put forth by the CDD, and he's showing me 4 different examples that have evolved over time as districts continue to increase in number. They move further south. But he started off by saying county. But the county government and the CDD are not one and the same. And when it comes to deed restrictions, this isn't law. It's county laws are laws. And deed restrictions are not laws. Deed restrictions are enforceable by the governing body, generally in the form of fines and notifications. Now, if whatever whatever is causing the deed restriction to be violated then translates into something unlawful, yes, I could see where that could happen. But I don't understand the example, right? Because and maybe it was just a slip of the tongue, right? Where the example was in District 13, which we're talking fairly far south in the newer sections as at the time of this recording, right? And your dogs are barking and your neighbor deems that to be a nuisance behavior. And there's 3 dogs specifically, even though we just stated that the amount has been removed in the verbiage in District 13, right? So it doesn't have to be 3 dogs. Oops, we hit the record limit. Just can't avoid it. So I was wrestling with the example prior to hitting the record limit. I think maybe the thing that I take issue with is the idea that law enforcement would even be involved in a situation like this. Outside of law enforcement, typically isn't going to get involved with deed restriction violations. That's not their realm. That's not their purview. if that deed restriction, I think the point I was making is that if that deed restriction also is an all unlawful act, then I could see law enforcement coming and getting involved. I had a story example, but I'm gonna skip that for the sake of time here. The other thing that I want to touch base on is I know where this whole three dog and then one dies and then you can't replace the dog type thing comes from. What happens a lot of times, and it is frustrating, so I understand Rusty's position on this because I agree with Rusty. If it's not in writing, I'm sorry, excuse me, words. If it's not in writing, I don't care, right? If it's not in writing, it doesn't matter, okay? There's things that are enforceable, and then there are things that are not enforceable. And what will happen a lot of the times, and I come up against this a lot as a real estate professional here in the villages, right? What will happen a lot of times is we'll call the CDD and we'll speak to an individual on the phone and we'll ask for clarification on where exactly are the parameters on this item, this deed restriction, okay? Because my customer wants to know because it's of interest to them, right? And they don't want to violate the deed restriction. At the same time, it is going to be an informative element in their decision making, right? And I will get almost 100% of the time an explanation that doesn't fit the text, okay? And this comes around to enforcement, right? Going back and looking at his District 1 example, okay, about the 20 pounds, right? Well, obviously the deed restrictions have been modified and evolved over time, okay? And every district has the ability and the right to kind of modify their deed restrictions as they see fit based on their elective boards. But a lot of times they just agree not to enforce the rules as written because they're outdated, right? They don't necessarily update them or amend them in writing. There's this unspoken thing where we're just not going to enforce it as written, and that's going to be very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me. So I can understand where Rusty's coming from on that, right? Because now I have to, in the example that I'm giving here, right, I have to go back to my customer and I have to say, well, it says this in writing. But when I spoke to them, they're more in line with the idea of this, okay? And those two things, they don't parse. And now I have some liability here because I'm conveying this information from one party to another, right? And so it's not a great position. I'm not comfortable necessarily being in that position, but we have a question and we need to find an answer, right? And when we find the answer, sometimes the legitimacy of that answer is questionable. So let's jump back in here. I don't want to get too deep into, CDD enforcement type stuff. But, is it a problem? Can it be an issue? Is it difficult because you want to understand the rules because you don't want to violate the rules? And then the rules as written aren't necessarily how it's enforced. Yeah, it can be frustrating. Oh my goodness, this is a look on Rusty's face. Let me pop this open here real quick. All right, here we go.
Let me tell you, pick up after your animals, pick up the dog poop. Don't be a lazy son of a bee neighbor and leave your poop on other people's lawns or the dog's poop. Jeez. All right, let's go out and let's just take a couple of looks at a couple of dogs parks.
I feel like maybe Rusty has a personal investment in this statement here. He just, yeah. All right. Like I said before, I don't care. It's all fertilizer to me. So, all right, let's get back in.
For those people that haven't been to the dog parks, and I just ran out today and took some pictures of them. Had a lot of fun, and yes, I was playing with the dogs. Here you go. If you're going to come down to the dog parks, there's definitely some etiquette and things you need to learn if it's your first time down here. And as stated, Paul said to me before, please tell people to please read some of these kind of rules or guidelines for people to deal with their dogs, because a lot of times people come down here and they're not familiar with getting in areas with other animals, so to speak. And a lot of times their animals haven't. So you really want to make sure that they're pet friendly and they kind of get along with all the other dogs. But one thing to know right away is that there are two areas. There's a small dog area, and that's a maximum of 30 pounds. So if you want your dog to play with the small dogs, they may have to go on a diet. Anyway, and then there is the dogs over 30 pounds. Also, when you come here, I was asked to convey some of these things. There are dog park guidelines. And if you take a look at these, they do change every once in a while. I will put the link down below so you can read that. But I was also told it's very important. Just take a second, especially if it's your first time, and go over these kind of canine rules and guidelines. And they should help you out a lot and make sure everybody's kind of on the same page with their animals, because remember, they are animals. I know they're pets, I know they're part of your family, but they are animals. And just like us humans, we always don't get along with every other human. So you have to keep an eye on your pets. Right behind me is probably the important thing right here, the duty calls, the poopy bags. And I was also told, believe it or not, that even in the middle of this, the people that are in charge of the dog parks or working at a rec center, they have told me that people actually, even in this atmosphere, people still tend not to pick up their dog poop. I don't understand that. You have all these other people around and stuff like that, and they still just leave their dog poop out there. I don't know whether they don't see it or not, but definitely something you want to keep track of. But also, he told me that you're supposed to keep an eye on your animal at all times, because they do have problems, obviously, every once in a while. Like I said, they're animals, and even though you think they're friendly, I used to train dogs, watch dogs. They weren't attack dogs, but they were watch dogs. And even the friendliest dogs can have their episodes of not liking somebody else. But there is a water area, and you see there's already a bowl out here and stuff like that. But he also asked me to convey to him that please don't leave your bowls and stuff like that around here. Please take them home with you, because they have to dispose of them if they find them out here. So it does not do any good to leave them out here. But as you can see, this is the over 30 pounds, and looks more like a socializing than anything. And this over here is the 30 pounds. Now, before I leave, I'll go up and maybe I'll do it right now, take a aerial view so you can see kind of what's around here. But yeah, I mean, it looks like the dogs are having a blast out here. You may think I'm in jail, actually, but this is a little area that's got two gates to it. And when you come in here, this is an area where you can leash your dog up, keep it from running around. And you really want to have your dog leashed up once you get into this area. And this area over here is the small dog area. Currently, I figured on the way back, since it was only 4 minutes from the last visit, the dog park, I take a walk over to Dudley, which is kind of unique. If your dog's never been here, you've never had the dog play here, this is kind of cool because they've got a lot of things that the dogs can run around and jump on. So this is a lot of fun. This is like a playground for dogs, I guess. Kind of all the little amenities you'd like to see. And I'm sure if I can get down here sometime while there's dogs on here running around, it'd be kind of cool to see exactly what the dogs are doing here, or whether they actually play with it. But I was kind of chuckling because it looks like some dogs already found some places to dig and have some fun. So if you have that kind of dog that likes running around,
this could be a fun place for them to come.
Here is a list of the current parks that I have. I'll pass that along to you. I'll also put pertinent links down below so that you have those. And remember, please pick up after your dogs and please keep them off the hot pavement. And thank you so much for joining me. If you have any other information that I'm sure a lot of other dog people would like, put it down in the comments, put it down in the areas where I can see it, and I'll try to pass it along. But please remind people that those pavements get hot, and it does get hot out there. Don't leave your dog in the car. Pick up your poop. And thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you down in the villages or see you next time back here on YouTube. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. I'm not going to turn off that cuteness. It's not going to happen. So why this particular topic? Why this particular video? Right? One of the great things about Realtor Reacts is that it gives me an opportunity to kind of dive into some subjects and topics that generally wouldn't come up. I mean, yeah, I have the conversation about, dog safety with the Gators, with a lot of my customers, particularly those who are going to be buying homes near bodies of water. But I've never had the conversation about, pavement heat and damaging the padding on the animal's foot. So it's a unique opportunity. We're going to take advantage of it. And I'm very, very grateful for Rusty to kind of jump on and broach this topic, because I wouldn't have thought to talk about it otherwise. He did a fantastic job, as he traditionally does. Like I said before, I always appreciate Rusty's presentation efforts in creating his content here on the internet. This is it kind of does fall into my purview a little bit as a real estate professional and as a realtor, because, like I said, dogs are part of our extended family, right? They're our youngest residents because of how they age, but they live here, right? And so they are a consideration when we are selecting a home and we're looking at locations. And it's challenging from a realtor perspective, right? Because how close is the dog park? Where are the walking paths? I've had customers where it seems like almost the entire selection process is kind of around the dog, and the dog's lifestyle and the dog's opportunities. And it's like, I love my dog too, but boy, we're spending a couple $100,000 here to make sure this dog is comfortable. But hey, no judgment. It's people. We all have our different priorities. So this has been Realtor Reacts. Thanks for joining us. I know this is a bit of an unorthodox topic, but we try and have a little bit of fun and get a little bit of information where we can. Didn't mean to get into a rant about restrictions and enforcement. Just seemed like a good place to have that conversation briefly. So thanks for joining us once again. My name is Christopher. This has been Realtor Reacts. If you have any other questions or if you have any thoughts, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. Browse around the channel for a little bit if you care to. We've got some other great videos out there. We're going to keep this train chugging down the tracks, and thanks so much for joining us. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. See you next time.